Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you so much again for bearing with me from having to reschedule from last week. So I'm just going to give a few seconds just to let everybody get settled, and then we'll kick off into today's webinar. So as we go through, if you've got any questions, please do add them to the chat box or to the Q&A. And what I'll do is we'll have some time at the end where I'll be able to go through all of those with you. So I'm going to be giving a lot of information to you today, and you might think as we go through, well, there's not a lot of info on slides. Don't worry, the handouts have got the full info, and I'll be uploading those to LinkedIn afterwards so that you can have those. And then the recording of this webinar will be available on YouTube so that you can catch up if you've missed anything. Okay, so what we're going to go over today is hospitality trends. So we're talking very much about the hotel and travel sector today. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the marketing mix and how you can attract customers going forwards into 2022, and then we'll go into our Q&A session. Okay, so looking at the trends, this recent study from Statista shows where each of the countries believes that their tourism is going to rebound. So as we can see across the board for most of the world, everyone's believing that by sort of Q1 of 2023, we'll be sort of almost fully back to normal. But there is a lot of anticipation that sort of Q2 and 3 of next year will also be suitable as well. So despite the travel restrictions and lockdowns caused by the pandemic, consumers across the sort of leading global outbound countries are preparing now to book long haul and short haul leisure and business travel trips. Now, a recent survey conducted by Kaleido Intelligence found that 79% of consumers across the leading outbound markets will book a leisure trip in the next 24 months, with just 45% of those booking a business trip. Looking ahead, the announcement and the rollout of vaccines are expected to, gradually increase consumer confidence and, obviously contribute to easing travel restrictions worldwide as well. UNWTO's extended scenarios for 2021 to 2024 point to a rebound in international tourism by the second half of this year, as we're already in. So we're starting to see that rebound coming through now, and that's expected to continue into 2022 as travel conditions normalise and the pandemic is contained globally. However, international travel could still take sort of 2.5 to 4 years to return to 2019 levels. So long haul travel is expected to restart over the next 24 months as 40% of people look to book both long haul destinations, with 26% booking a mix of long and short haul. And we have 79% of the respondents prefer European destinations for their next leisure trip once travel restrictions are lifted. And also the Middle East as well can expect a bit of a boom there too. The introduction of vaccine passports, which has been considered very or extremely important by 54% of respondents, that sort of figure is expecting to increase as the number of overseas trips increase as well. And 27% of UK outbound travellers prefer European destinations, with 23% going to be opting for North and Latin American destinations once travel restrictions are lifted. So I want to have a little look now at some of the sort of more in-depth trends that we can expect to see going forwards now and into 2022. So remote locations. So Liddy Pleasance of Stubborn Mule, they're an online travel agent. She's noticed a trend for their customers searching for sort of unforgettable experiences in far-flung locations. She says that people are booking for remote bear watching lodges, places like park lodges, or they want to have safari camps, places that are typically harder to get to. So this is where they're starting to see a lot more people interested in sort of wilderness camps and far-flung locations. And this trend has also been noticed by the Latin American Travel Association, with Thomas Power of Pura Aventura saying, people are planning for longer trips. We've seen the average booking go from 15-day trips to 23, and that might be a 3-week drive down the Argentina's Ruta 40 to see the Fitzroy Range, or an extravagant trip through the national parks. So, if you're nearby to sort of different wilderness areas or remote locations, these are the kinds of excursions that people are looking for, as well as making trips around them as well. Now, obviously, a common trend that we've been seeing industry-wide are guests looking to minimise their interactions and contacts with other guests and staff members. So here's where hotels and travel can really respond by highlighting gardens, highlight your ventilation, how much space you've got indoors. But also have a look at your service options as well. Are you offering a digital chat and concierge service? Can people order room service through their mobiles? Perhaps you're considering putting in mobile keys, for example. So again, have a look at the different stages of your buyer journey, both online and before they come to your premises. And, have a look at where you can decrease those interactions, but obviously you'll need to make sure, if you're moving to a sort of digital concierge, got to make sure that your tone of voice and style is on brand, so that people can have that strengthened brand experience all the way with you on their stays. So another key area that we're sort of seeing a lot of change in is takeaways and room service. So, in the past, a substantial section of the room service menu has been dedicated to fast food. However, because, the pandemic's given people time to sort of sit and reflect, people are starting to become more aware of what they're putting into their bodies. And that's leading to a lot of healthier food and drink trends. So for restaurants, this has meant revamping menus with healthier options, including gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan and organic still. But there is a trend for healthy food and drinks now that's extending into hotels, into the room service, catering packs to take away as well. And a lot of healthier room service options are now being sought by people. Now, when we couple room service with what we were saying before about fewer interactions, this really is a good time for us to start having a look at those room service menus. Are they actually speaking to who your guests are these days? We're also going to see a lot of people who want more restaurant quality meals for their room service, rather than the sort of burgers and chips, etc. So sustainability obviously remains a key driving point in decision makers for many buyers. A 2019 study by Southern Cross University found that 93% of people indicated a concern for the environment, with 77% of those respondents saying that they wanted to learn how to live more sustainably. Now, recent research from Expedia Group has shown that travellers surveyed want to support sustainable practices when they're travelling. And 59% of those people surveyed are actually willing to pay higher fees if it meant that their trip was more sustainable. Okay, so during the pandemic, indulgent consumption is on the increase as people start to look at how they can start better taking care of themselves. So we're seeing an increasing demand for indulgent food and drink, but we're also now sort of seeing this indulgent trend coming into other areas of hospitality, with travellers looking for indulgent amenities. So this might be things like dog beds and dog bowls so they can indulge their pets. It could be really high quality branded shower gels and moisturizers. It could be things like having weighted blankets or massage chairs in the rooms. So again, people are very much looking at how can they actually enhance that stay. Because for a lot of people, who have been in lockdown as well, especially with business travel, it really is a time where, you're on your own, aren't you? And you can finally relax, and you do want to sort of have some time to really properly recharge as well. So this is certainly an area for you to have a look at. So cultural tourism has been on the rise for a while now. Travellers want to participate in local cultural rituals or learn from locals at their destination. And this is so that they can ensure that they get a great cultural experience while they're on holiday. Now, for some travellers, this can also include giving back to the communities that are staying in through volunteerism. So that way, the visitor might come and stay in an area that they can then contribute to society by volunteering their time while they're staying, to give to that chosen cause or charity. So have a look to your local communities to think of, how can you sort of set up unique partnerships that can lend some local flavour to your guests? So this might be, say, bringing in a poet or a storyteller. It might be that you're running excursions to a local farm, perhaps, or perhaps you've got a local chef that can come in and do masterclasses. Or look at how you can work, with your local community to create a charity event and then invite people to come and stay and contribute to that. So I think there's a lot we can start looking at. And I really do believe that hotels in the future will sort of overtake pubs as being the cultural hubs of communities as more people go there to socialise and work and learn. So obviously staycations will still be a lot on people's minds next year. So, foreign travel and holidays is off the agenda for, millions of people, unfortunately. But staycations do look to be a stable trend for the next few years to come. So in the UK, for example, inquiries about domestic breaks have been up in 2022. Are up by around 74%, with families still sort of facing uncertainty over foreign travel. And of course, while we might all be vaccinated in the UK, if it means that we can't travel elsewhere because we've been put on other countries' red lists, then I think that's driving a lot more people to look at home as well. Experiential holidays remain, that's another popular new trend. So during the pandemic, many people use their free time to learn a new hobby. And now they're taking trips that are related to these activities. So these could be things like culinary themed holidays, birding trips, they could be gardening related journeys, and more. So again, have a look to your local communities and, what can you do to really create an experience? Perhaps it's time to start looking at the murder mystery evenings again and the sort of escape room concepts and, walk through experiences and pop-ups. I mean, this is what people are looking for. And I do feel that pop-up events are going to be very significant in the recovery, especially in the staycation market as well, because you're going to give your locals something to come back to each different week if you can get some exciting themes and concepts into place. Okay, so transformational travel. So this is exactly as you would guess. It's where travellers go on a trip to learn, to expand their minds, to have a moment of clarity, and basically grow from their experiences. Now, different types of travel packages can vary greatly from cooking in different ways to complete digital detoxes. So, for example, if you're a hotel that's in an area that doesn't have the best internet in the world, then perhaps you could use that as a plus point to offer people digital detoxes. Other types of transformational travel which remain popular are health boot camps, guided meditation journeys, and nostalgia trips as well. Now, transformational travel can take place both in groups or by singles flying solo. So do take that into consideration when you're planning your next campaigns. And of course, transformational experiences can also be crafted around the seasons. And, this then allows hotels opportunities to get more heads in beds during quieter times. As we can expect, road trips are going to be popular in 2022. People are still nervous about flying, and we're seeing a lot of people choosing what we're calling low travel, so i.e. transport that's low to the ground. So think, road and train and ferry trips will all be popular. Cruise ships, not so much for a little while longer, I'm afraid. Whereas the low travel allows, this type of transport allows travellers to physically distance more so than they can do on aeroplanes, for example, because you've got the windows or your roof down, etc. But one thing to take into consideration is that renting a car is going to get more expensive. And that's down to the global microchip shortage, because it is making the supply of new vehicles very tight at the moment. And prices may well surge due to high demand once they're back in stock. So, whilst we're not offering cars to people, that is something to take into consideration if you're going to be working with a chauffeur company to perhaps facilitate some of these trips. Okay, so while consumers are still emerging from more than a year of pandemic-related anxiety, for many travellers, the first travel experience will determine their future patterns. So, this first trip that people are taking back into the business world is going to, each moment's going to be amplified. So the more comfortable, the more secure you can make your guests feel, the more likely they are to choose one of your properties moving forwards as well. So again, just try and ensure that every touch point that your guests have, is a positive one. So higher income households have seen an increase in savings. That combined with increased vaccination rates bodes well for global travel. And according to a PwC survey, customers are willing to spend more money as well. So business travellers are 13% are willing to spend more for nicer accommodation. 28% are looking to have longer stays now with hotels. So we're still sort of seeing that leisure trend. I hate that word. That was coming in before COVID hit, with people traveling for work and then taking an extra couple of days for themselves to recharge. And I think now more than ever that's really important, because we all know we don't have the same energy levels that we did before COVID. There's a lot of studies out there that show that, we're more mentally tired than we were before. So having these little relaxation and recharge sessions after a business trip is more important than ever. Now, the other thing that we need to consider is what's going to happen in terms of remote working. Because after a year of remote work and video calls, business travel is expected to make a gradual comeback in the weeks and months ahead. However, some 40% of business travelers, believe that they'll meet or exceed pre-pandemic levels of business travel by the end of 2022. And that's regardless of whether or not they've actually planned their business trip now. But business traveller enthusiasm is lagging. 75% of business travellers in the PwC survey are not excited or indifferent to the idea of travelling again for work. So this leaves an opening for hotels to make business travellers as comfortable as possible and then keep them coming back. So with that in mind, and still on the sort of topic of business, with the exponential growth of remote working, many people have started to reconsider what it truly means to work remotely. Now, this mindset shift has brought the boost of the digital nomadic lifestyle. So, a digital nomad is somebody who works remotely from different locations and traveling the world at the same time. So we can certainly see an increase in people wanting to do that moving forwards. Now, a McKinsey & Co study found that 9 out of 10 businesses plan to combine remote and on-site working in a new hybrid model moving forwards. And Skift research reported earlier this year that people working remotely said that they plan to take more trips this year because of the work from anywhere flexibility. And finally, according to a recent Hotels by Day study, 77% of remote workers would consider signing up for a work from hotel subscription as long as the price is right. So there's a lot of opportunities for hotels to really capitalize on this digital and remote working mindset. In places like the UAE, it's very usual just to go and rock up at a restaurant or a hotel for the day, open your laptop and just start working. And we're starting to see a bit more of that over here in the UK and other places. And I think really this is going to increase, but more people will be looking for specific packages that allow them to work from a hotel and sightsee as well. So have a think about what your messaging is in regards to your Wi-Fi and, you know, the in-room personal facilities that people can have if they're going to use their hotel room as an office for the day. So moving away a bit from the business side of things, I just want to touch quickly on the buyer behavior and what's sort of driving travel decisions. So behavioral science tells us that there's that identifying consumers' new beliefs, habits, and peak moments is central to driving behavioral change. So what I want to do is share 5 ways that hotels can influence consumer behavior for the long term. So number 1 is reinforce positive new beliefs. So this means making sure that your website, your printed collateral, any posters at the premises are reassuring that you're letting people know that you respect their physical boundaries and what they're doing there, and that you're doing everything you can to make them feel safe. So reinforce every positive thing that you're doing to make customers happy in this new normal. Shape emerging habits with new service offerings. So as we can see more habits, like especially the work from hotel and people wanting more nutritious room service, you know, the industry can shape those by, you know, putting that into new offerings. Help guests sustain positive new habits. So a lot of people are concerned about sustainability, and, you know, when they want to go on holiday, they want to ensure that the hotel they're staying with is sustainable. Or perhaps, you know, they're giving up alcohol, or perhaps they want a healthier diet. You know, look to see how your F&B offerings can be changed to adapt that. Align your marketing messages to consumer mindsets. So I want you all to sort of stop and have a think now. When was the last time you did a buyer persona and buyer journey exercise? Because if it was more than a year ago, then you definitely need to do a new one now, because things have changed so much in the last 12 months. You know, we've got an enormous amount of new people using the internet that haven't been done before. So they're sort of brand new. They've got to find new learnings. And, you know, for the Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen Alpha that's going to be coming through soon, you know, these guys are all on their mobiles. So again, you need to make sure, you know, have you got a presence on mobile? Are you on the correct social media channels for your target audience? So now's definitely a good time to sort of revisit the target demographics and who you're looking for. So according to McKinsey, when consumers are surprised and delighted by new experiences, even long-held beliefs can change, making customers more willing to repeat the behavior, even when the trigger, which in this case was COVID-19, is no longer present. So what I mean by that is there's a number of influences that COVID has brought around, and I'm just going to go through those with you so that you know how people have been impacted, and, you know, this will give you a bit of direction on how to respond. So key drivers at the moment in making decisions: number 1 is safety. Number 2 is that information is coming from trusted sources. Number 3 is sustainability, mindful choices, more control over their surroundings, deeper brand relationships, increased digital adoption, and an increased awareness of health. So basically, everybody's paying a lot more attention now to every single aspect of their journey. So again, that's why that's important to have those buyer journey maps done. Okay, so coming on to some of the trends and the marketing mixes and what you could look at doing to attract some people. So online events and classes are certainly picking up in popularity. So whether the event is taking place entirely online or it's a hybrid, i.e. it's a mixture of interpersonal interaction and online assistance, there's a number of different virtual events that you could think about putting on to reach out to your guests. So have a look, but you will need to consider these options to make sure that these are successful. So make use of the technology and tools that you have available. Have a look at how you're going to engage and grow your audience, because if you're going to get into online events and classes, then consistency is going to be the key. Now, it doesn't matter if it's weekly or monthly or fortnightly. Stick to a schedule and then people will know to tune in. It's the same concept as when people, before Netflix used to tune into their favorite TV show each week. Now, of course, virtual events can take place from any venue, as people still need to work with their immediate team. So for a lot of businesses coming to have conferences, they're going to need virtual speakers to dial in. So have a look at your AV offerings and screens and Wi-Fi levels there. I mean, your technology doesn't have to be the most expensive or cutting edge. And, you can make use of programs like Zoom or Google Meetings, etc. But do pay attention to the lights. That's probably the key thing to have a look at if you're going to be putting on any online events and classes is, look at that lighting. Now, another area that's really impacting how people are making decisions online is VR tours. So obviously video tours have been around for a little while. And according to VR research findings, Statista found that spending on VR content and apps reached $8 billion in 2021. So that's a huge amount of money being invested into VR apps as well. Now, interest in virtual reality for hospitality is increasing, especially as smartphone users can now experience a region without having to leave the comfort of their own home. So for a lot of people, that's going to give them security and safety if they can see what your premises looks like. I mean, for some other people, this is going to be an aspirational tool. They might not be able to afford to visit your beautiful premises this year, but if you've got that VR and it's so immersive and it makes such an impact, that's an unforgettable experience, and that will have people booking with you in the future as well. Now, one thing that you need to be aware of is that third-party cookies will no longer be supported by Google moving forwards. And this is in response to privacy becoming increasingly important to consumers, and of course the different changes in data protection as well. So the four big companies, that's Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, these guys still use a lot of first-party data sets in their advertising. So, if you're using Google ads or Facebook ads, etc., the cookieless future isn't going to upset you too much. But the third-party cookies, if you're not using one of those big four companies, they're the ones that aren't going to be supported by browsers in the future. So what we want to do there to sort of balance that out is, look at ways that you can increase your first party contacts. So, look at running competitions so that you're getting people's email addresses or phone numbers, anything that you can do to capture that direct content information from your customers is going to be useful in terms of sort of retaining them and also upselling to them as well. And transparent health and safety policies. I know this is something we've covered several times before, but it does remain a key driver for people. So, make sure that you're leveraging the presence of your website homepage to talk about your health and safety policies. Throughout the reservation process, make sure that you reiterate the steps that you're taking to keep guests safe at each level of that. Check your entries across all of your distribution channels and OTAs. So make sure your descriptions are updated to include a mention of your health and safety policies there. Provide the sort of safety related information with the pre-arrival and confirmation emails. That's another good way to keep in touch. And of course, offer on-the-spot safety information at the venue to reinforce your commitment to health and safety for your customers. So in terms of the digital marketing mix, for some businesses in the hotel industry, you know, getting seen and engaged with online has never been more important, particularly if you're smaller and if you haven't used the internet too much before. So I'm just going to go through the digital channels that you should be considering. And that's really to sort of capture an audience of Gen Z and above. So the main channels that you should be looking at this moment in time for your business would include Facebook and Instagram, YouTube. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that YouTube's actually the second largest search engine in the world. So and it's really super popular with the sort of under 30s in terms of searching for answers. So you absolutely make sure that you've got presence on YouTube. TikTok looks like it's here to stay. And actually what we're seeing on that channel is a lot of the high net worth individuals getting travel inspiration that way. So again, if you're a luxury or boutique venue, TikTok's a place that you want to be. LinkedIn and WhatsApp remains important for business travel and for, you know, sort of building relationships with local suppliers and people that you can collaborate with. And then, of course, you want to look at Google My Business and your OTAs. So Google's going to be making a lot of changes in the upcoming year. Essentially, I think off the record, it seems to me that they're sort of getting a bit fed up of all the aggregators being at the top of the results. So what they've been trying to do is really sort of like even the playing field over the last few years for everybody. So this is why having your reviews on Google My Business is really important, because that actually affects your SEO rankings for your hotel as well. So make sure that you're on top of those. Okay, so any questions? I'm going to hand that over to you guys now. So Befender says, hello, everyone. So yeah, a big hello to you. And thank you so much for joining me today. I'm happy to answer any questions that everybody has. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to write those in. Of course, if we don't have any questions today, that's absolutely fine. You can always follow up with me in person on LinkedIn or through my mobile, or if you want to scan here, then that will take you to my website. Lovely. So I'm going to be popping details of my next webinar up shortly. And that will be on the F&B trends for next year. So if you're looking, you know, if you want to know what you're looking for your restaurants, or for packed lunches, catering, basically HORECA, then that will be one for you. So I've got some guys raising their hands here. So let me just, hey, just inviting you to talk if you want to sort of share some thoughts with me. Lovely to speak to you this morning. Okay, so Zinzin asks, where will the videos and handouts be uploaded? That they will be uploaded to the LinkedIn event page. So I'm going to upload them there. You'll be able to download the PDF straight away, and I'll pop the link from YouTube onto there as well. You can't hear me. Oh dear. Can anybody else hear me? Could you let me know, please? Okay, lovely. Thanks, guys. Right. Any recommendations as to how hotels should be using TikTok to attract guests? Yes, great ideas. So there's a few different ways that you can use TikTok to attract guests. Now, because of the nature of TikTok, it's heavily reliant on video and very short. So there's a few different ways. One of the ways that you could do it is to show off your team by getting involved in the TikTok challenges and having your team take part in those, because that humanizes your brand. And then, you know, if you can make people smile or you make them feel happy, they're much more likely to do business with you. So by getting involved in the challenges is one way. Another way that you could attract guests is through quick little tours on there, or perhaps have a look at how you could create your own TikTok challenge as well. Okay, so I've now got a question from Danny. He says, is mixing co-working spaces with hotels in one building a good idea in the trending industry today? Well, I think, you know, when we look at the actual co-working business model, a lot of it was set in the larger, you know, in the larger cities, particularly sort of for freelancers and, you know, creative agencies and remote workers to get together. Whereas what we're seeing now is many more people are starting to think of, do I actually need to live here? If I was living here to commute, and actually I don't need that to do this anymore, or I can carry on working from home, what we're going to see is a sort of gradual shift of people out of the cities. So you'll find that all of these people that did discover that this meeting could have been an email are going to carry on doing that. But, you know, at the same time, do you necessarily want to impress a client at home if your dogs and cats are bouncing around all over the place? Or perhaps you just want to change your energy as a freelancer that day and work in a different environment. So I think, you know, whilst the co-working buildings have a place, you know, hotels, particularly in some of the more rural areas, this is where you can really capitalize on this new trend. Didier says, will you send a certificate of attendance today for the webinar? Didier, if you could please drop me an email, it's dawn@dawngribble.com, and I'll be more than happy to send you a certificate of attendance. And anybody else that would like that, then please do drop me an email. I'll be more than happy to send that out for you so you can give that to your team leaders.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Upendra.
Hi, Bhupendra.
Kumar. Yes, I'm connecting from Nairobi, Kenya. So thanks for organizing such a wonderful webinar on trending like hospitality for 2022. I have one question, because as we are seeing now, the business has been improving. We are coming back to normal and we are becoming like we are operating normally the way we used to operate in 2019, though we have not fully recovered, but at least we can say 75-80% we have already recovered our business. So my question is, every country, every continent, their business will be growing as per their conditions, as per their tourism facilities, and as per ongoing vaccine and all. So it will be depending countries to countries. So I would like to know, will there be any kind of benchmark or maybe a trending report which can be shared for 2022, how the business will be growing in Africa or other continents? Because I am from Africa, so I will be more concerned about African continent's business. So will there be any kind of benchmark, how we can increase our revenue, how there will be like a revenue growth in 2022 in African countries, something like that kind of, that sort of report can we get?
That's not something I've currently got to hand, but that's certainly something that I can put together. And, you know, if your business needs a specific report as well, then, you know, do speak to me, as that's something that I can do. But, you know, if you've got some suggestions of what you'd like to see in future webinars or perhaps other talks that I can put on, I'm always grateful to hear people's feedback.
Okay, thank you so much. And I request if you can just drop that email address where you are saying the attendance certificate can be given, so we can write email there.
Yes, I will do. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now have a question from Ali from Johannesburg. He said, you never mentioned Twitter in your mix. Why? There are a number of travel bloggers who have fabulous presence. Ali, you're absolutely right. And that should have been included. So Twitter, I think, with all the problems that Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp have had this year with the sort of outages and what have you, every time there's an outage, everyone goes to Twitter. What's going on with this? So you're absolutely right. I should have included that in there. And Twitter is a fantastic channel for a lot of hotels. I'm going to share a tip with you all. Now, one of the nice things about Twitter is that you can set up location monitoring. Now, if you're using like a tool like Hootsuite, for example, you can use geolocation monitoring. So it's really helpful if you're near sort of like a travel destination or a port or somewhere like that, you could actually set up listening to scan what people are saying. And if people are going, oh, where should I stay in such and such a place? You can either sort of search by people in an area asking questions or in general. So Twitter is a fantastic way of actually doing proactive customer service and proactive sales for people. So yeah, definitely include Twitter in your mix. Okay, I've got Elena who says, I'm launching my app travel guide / concierge. Where should I advertise and what platform do you use? What platform you use to suggest? So it depends very much on who your audience is, because, you know, a lot of youngsters will use channels like TikTok and Snapchat more than they would use Facebook, for example. So it does depend on the sort of different age groups, but in general, any channel that's visual in nature, Instagram, Pinterest, for example, will be very useful for advertising beautiful destinations. Now, Facebook comes into its own in terms of, well, when the advertising actually works, in targeting people that have got very specific interests. So if you were doing, let's say, a yoga retreat, or you wanted to, you know, advertise about yoga offers on your concierge, then you could use Facebook to sort of go after all the people that are looking for, you know, that are interested in yoga on there. So I would initially start then with perhaps Facebook and Instagram to get started, because there is a good audience on there that is used to travel. Instagram in particular, a lot of people use that to find inspiration for where they're going to visit, as well as eat and drink. That's there. So my email again is dawn@dawngribble.com. Hopefully it's on this little screen in front of you, but I'll pop my details into the LinkedIn event listing afterwards. Okay, Atan asks how to deal with employees who don't want to be vaccinated or wear masks in terms of their rights to refuse to do so. That's a challenging one, isn't it? That's very challenging. I will answer from my personal point of view, which in my personal point of view, hospitality is about caring for people. And wearing a mask isn't about protecting the wearer from COVID, it's about protecting other people about the germs you're breathing out. So my answer to that question is that if you truly have hospitality in your heart, then you'll wear a mask and you'll look after people. But that's just my personal feelings. It's, you know, obviously, you know, it's just a difficult one. Yeah, but that's my personal thoughts there. Okay, so the working from hotel idea, what would you recommend for hotels to look at building something like office pods for clients to work in separate for the hotel? Well, I think it really depends on how many rooms you have there. So the working from a hotel idea, there's a couple of ways that you could do this. One would be to, you know, hire out your rooms for the day that people could use as offices. Now, that obviously depends on your vacancies and what time of year it is. For other people, it might be making sure that, you know, if you've got an orangery or an old bar or something like that, you might want to sort of set up socially distanced desks, like hot desks where people can then sort of come in and work from there. And, you know, this is where you can then start looking at that subscription model, because if you've got an F&B offering and a co-working offering that you can give to people, then, you know, you can bundle something like that up together as like a sort of, you know, a business deal. And that I think would be quite attractive to a number of freelancers. Yes, I will. Let me just I'm just going to type my email address into the chat so that everybody's got that there. Okay, and Lena, you've asked about VIP niches. So in terms of what we're looking at in luxury, it's very much your luxury travelers that are looking for these far-flung places. So this is where you want to sort of offer the experiential and, you know, difficult to get to locations. So that's where I'd sort of be focusing my attention there. So have a look at what you can do with local partners for that particular offering. Right, I think we've got something. Right, lovely. So I think that's everything at the moment. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to call it a day there. And I'd just like to thank you. Oh, sorry. Right, what have we got? So, where to find more information on VR for hospitality business? Well, I've got a number of companies that I can put you in touch with for VR. So again, please drop me a message and I shall do my best to connect you with the right people. Which environment working in hotels or tourism will expand your work in the field of marketing? Interesting. It's funny because, I started my career in hospitality myself. And that's what led me into marketing, I suppose, because I like communicating with people. So really, whether you're working in hotels or tourism, if you can sort of hone in on how you're communicating with people, is it effective? Is it making them feel good? That's really sort of what marketing at its heart is about. People. It's about helping people find what they need, delighting them, making sure they've got that information. So if you're looking at, how the best to improve your marketing for your hotel, think of your marketing as the digital front of house. Imagine how you would speak to people physically when they check in, and see how you can translate that into digital. Okay, guys, right. I definitely need a cup of tea now. So thank you so much, everyone. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Please do drop me a line. Do stay in touch. And I'll let you all know when my next webinar is next month. Thank you so much, guys, and have an absolutely marvelous day. Cheers. Bye-bye.